All right, here we are. Romans 4. Let's jump right in. So what I think Paul is trying to do in Romans 4, coming out of, righteousness by faith and all that, is he's trying to walk this tightrope with the Jewish believers and now the non-Jewish believers, the Gentiles. And what he's trying to do is ground us Christians in a bigger story. And then he's also trying to challenge the Jewish believers, of which he is one, to look past their rules and their scriptures and more towards their faith. So listen, this is what I'm trying to say. Okay. Listen, what do you have to do to earn your salvation? And the answer to that is you don't have to do anything. We're going to get, Paul is later in Romans, the wages of sin versus the gift of God, right? That's what we talked about last week. What Paul is once again still dealing, I say once again, this is just a continuation of last week, so he's not once again, he's still trying to drill it into the Jewish believers' minds that, look, it's not about the stuff that we do, it's not about, look, we have the Torah and we get circumcised and we do our festivals and our feasts, and if we do all these things, it just kind of proves that we have this special in. What Paul is saying is, look, you're a child of Abraham, but being a child of Abraham doesn't get you the special into the kingdom of God. What you should recognize is that the reason Abraham was in was because of his faith, not because of the things he did. He did things as an outworking of his faith, but it was his faith that was reckoned to him as righteousness, is the words that Paul uses. So this is a big challenge to the Jewish believers. Look, it's not that you possess a system of law or you keep the law and the Torah. It's that what the key is to embrace salvation through faith. Okay? And then turn that around to Gentile believers, be us, okay? We're the Gentiles, for most of us anyway. And to the Gentile believers is like, look, this isn't something new, okay? What Paul's trying to say is we too go back to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, right? And Abraham is our spiritual father, and that makes Sarah our spiritual mother. We too are part of this larger story. So we don't chop off the first half of our Bible and say, well, we're New Testament people. Instead, what we're supposed to recognize is that we're part of this bigger story that Christ came to fulfill, not to do away with, right? So it's a challenge to the Gentile believers and it's a challenge to the Jewish believers. And it's all, the whole purpose of the challenge is faith. And the question is, well, faith in what? And faith, the what is simply faith in the death and the resurrection of Christ. Okay? Paul says it, that Jesus died for our sin and rose for our justification. So Jesus died to take away our sin, and when in his rising we are justified. So this act of Christ is what opens up for us the kingdom of God. So that's where everything rises and falls. Okay? And that's what I believe. I believe in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And for you, belief in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ is what makes you a Christian. All right? It's what calls you in to the whole story of the Bible and in the story of the church as God is working it out over these last 2,000 years. And look, I'm unconcerned when someone tries to ridicule Christians for their belief in the resurrection, I don't even care that you can point to all the millions of people who have died and stayed dead. None of that matters to me. I am a child of Abraham, and Paul points out in here, look, Abraham was not a dummy. He was not some mystic wandering around in the desert, like eating mushrooms and smoking psychedelics. He didn't refuse to believe the facts that were facing him. Abraham was realistic, and yet he was also a leader. He was successful, and Paul says that he looked everything in the face, and he believed in a God who could raise the dead, right? That was the God that Abraham believed in. That's the God that I believe in. That faith that God can bring resurrection from death is foundational to the faith of Christianity, all right? There is nothing in the writing of the New Testament like this idea that, well, you can be a Christian and you can just completely cut out some of the very foundational beliefs of our faith is ludicrous. All right? I guess that's the question you have to ask yourself. What do you believe? Okay? Because if your belief is still like, look, I'm good with God as long as I go to church every Sunday, and as long as I give my money and I volunteer, I'm good with God as long as I'm the best I can be, or as long as I do better than my neighbor, then your belief system is based on the wrong thing, because it's about faith. All right? That's what Paul's getting to here. That's a wonderful thing, because it's much easier than trying to earn your way into a relationship with God if instead it's just a gift based on your faith. That's a beautiful thing. But also if like, look, but I just can't get with Jesus dying and being risen from the dead. I think he was a cool dude. I think he did amazing things. Like, that also falls short. That's what that Paul is getting to us here. Like, look, you have to believe in some sort of miracle, because that's the God who we believe in, is a God of miracles. Okay, and that's where Paul is leaving us. And for he's trying to get everybody on the same page, and this is a hard page to get them all on. But look, God's promise is realized through faith in the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Okay? That's what Christianity is. And that's what Paul's getting to today. Read it. Listen. Talk about your struggles. Ask your questions. But read it and dig into it. That's Romans chapter 4. And this guy Paul, who I often struggle with because he always comes off as a bit legalistic to me. Like, he is laying down theology that is not take it or leave it if you're going to be in this faith. This is theology that's like, look, you have to wrestle with this and come to terms with it. All right? Romans chapter 4. Next week, boy, it looks like we're going to jump into the results of justification. But we talked about Abraham. We're going to get into Adam. He's going to go all the way back to Adam next week. Hey, try to catch up this week. All right? Romans chapter 4. Read it, pray about it, and if you have any questions, ask me about it. Love you guys. Have a great week.